I've got my fancy baker shoes on. So what are we doing here? Maritozzi, right? Maritozzi. Okay, so today we're gonna make Maritozzi. It's a brioche bun filled with cream, dusted with confectioner's sugar. It's a classic Roman pastry, usually eaten around dessert. I'll eat it any time of day. Let's make Maritozzi. The dough for Maritozzi is brioche, and it's one of the things that makes this one of my favorite pastry treats. Brioche is one of the foundational doughs in baking. It's enriched, it has a lot of butter, it has a lot of eggs, it has a lot of fermentation for flavor. So the first thing we're gonna do is the brioche mix. So, flour in the bowl. The flour is all-purpose, yeast, sugar, salt, and milk powder, eggs and water. Cracking them into the bowl just in case I lose a piece. 3 whole eggs. For over 300 grams of flour, it's only 57 grams of water or something like that, 2 ounces basically. Okay, so let's mix the base dough. You'll notice that I've held back the butter. What we want to do is first develop a very strong base dough so that it has the sort of fortitude to hold up all of that butter. So first I mix the base dough and then I slowly add in the butter. So the first step here is to get the dough homogeneous. So I want that, all the dry incorporated, no floury spots. I want it to clean the bowl. And so I'm gonna let this mixer run on a medium speed for about 7 to 10 minutes. You can set a timer if you want. I think it's a good idea if you haven't made brioche before to set a timer, but also check in with the dough, stop it, feel it, scrape the bowl if you need to. The idea is that you want to develop an awareness of what strength looks like because it's so important with brioche. So as the dough gains strength, it's building both extensibility and elasticity. And so with that elasticity, which is like the rubber band quality that gluten has, it begins to pull from the side and sort of do what we call clean the bowl. You see how it's starting to smooth out some? It looks a little bit smoother. It's not there all the way yet, but you can see how if I pull on it some, it has some strength that wasn't there, a couple minutes ago. Looks close enough. I think we're good. So that was about 10 minutes, and it feels good. It feels like it's developed. It has the ability to stretch pretty thinly, and we are gonna add a little bit of additional strength as we mix this butter in. I mean, it's gonna continue to mix, so. Okay, so let's talk for just a second about the butter. You don't wanna put this into the mix straight out of the fridge. You want it to be in a little bit of a pliable state. So we say like cool room temp. This is like slightly on the cool room temp side. The studio is kind of chilly. But it should be pliable. If it's not pliable, what'll happen is it'll go into the mix and you'll have these sort of hard pieces that are difficult to incorporate. So pliable, but not soft. In the beginning, sometimes this requires a little bit of encouragement to get the butter and the dough to begin to sort of party. But after it mixes for a little bit and softens some, it'll more easily incorporate the rest of the butter. I want the bulk of what I added to be incorporated before I make another addition. So I'm adding the butter in stages. Apple butter going in. So as I'm mixing in between each stage now, the dough has enough strength that it's sort of like literally cleaning the bowl before the next addition of butter. And so I'll add this. That's the end of the butter, and we'll just wait for it to clean again. And then we're done. So we've got a lot of strength and all of the butter and stuff is in there. So if you look at it now versus where it was when we started, you've got strength and you have extensibility. We're gonna give it an hour at room temp and then we're gonna chill it overnight. And what that's gonna do is it's going to give it a lot of fermentation, which equals flavor, right? So we're gonna increase the flavor beyond the butter, beyond the eggs, beyond that little bit of sugar and salt. We're adding the flavor of fermentation, which brings depth to what we're making. But the reason for the chilling also is that the dough is kind of hard to handle right now. It's very soft. And so by chilling it overnight, and you'll see this when we go to divide, it's much easier to round. It's much easier to form into a crust for tarte flambée, or to make Danish with, or to make a brioche loaf, or a nanterre, or a brioche à tête, all the different things that we can make with this sort of noble foundational dough, which is brioche. And it's really one of my favorites. Look at that, Tucker. Is that beautiful or what? So it gets a little bit of a rest before it goes into the fridge overnight, and make sure you cover it. That's something that's important. But so into a covered bowl overnight, and then I put a second over the top. Watch this. Bada boom, bada boom. Whoa, did you see that, Tucker? So, boom, beautiful, right? I'll degas it a little bit. I'm going to divide this into 12 pieces, and if you do 12s, it's going to weigh about 60 grams each, 60, 65 grams each, right in there. So 12 pieces. So if you're new to sort of rounding rolls, the process is a lot like making a round loaf, in that I sort of press into the center, pull from the outside and press into the center, making my way around, and you'll see this sort of tension and become almost like a ball. And that's most of the way there. I like to do a little bit of additional rounding, just sort of holding the roll between my thumb and fingers and just moving in a circle. And as I sort of bounce it off the inside of my hand, it gets round. But so proof and covered in a draft-free place at room temperature, 3 hours. You know, in a cold room, it's pretty chilly in here. They might go 4 hours even. Just watch that dough, make sure they're really puffy, marshmallowy almost, and then we'll bake them. I feel like smoke should billow out or something, right? All right, so brioche buns, several hours into the proof. And the really nice thing here is that it's not like there's a really precise moment of perfection with these. There's a pretty big window where they're good to go in the oven. You can push them quite a ways, you can load them a little bit younger. Both work just fine. These I've pushed a little bit. They could even go another, half hour, maybe even 45, something like that. Before we can bake them, I want to add an egg wash. And the egg wash is going to add some shine, and it's also going to help them to brown in the oven. I've got the oven at 375. They're going in for 15 minutes, maybe a couple more. We'll just look at the color and pull them when they're nice and golden. I'm very excited about these brioche. This is the color you want. It's like chestnut. You could go lighter, but this is a very flavorful bake, and it's not dry. It's going to be very tender inside. It's got so much butter and eggs. They're light for their size. Brioche buns, man, good for sliders, good for sandwiches, great for Maritozzi. We're going to let them cool, and then we'll fill them. These are cool and ready to go, and what I want to do is the classic version first. So the classic version is just a bun with the cream, a little bit of confectioners on it. That's it. It's very simple, but it's like the most elegant representation, I think, of this. So I just cut it, and I'm not cutting all the way through. I'm leaving a little bit of that crust on the bottom because I don't want it to fall apart. I don't want two halves. I just want it split, right? And then whipped cream. Just enough to sort of fill it. And I make an initial pass with my spoon, and then I go back and I just clean it up. And then a little bit of confectioners. So a classic Maritozzi, very basic, just with the sugar. I mean, that's what I like. If I want something sweet, that's what I want. I don't necessarily gravitate toward like a heavier sweet than that, even though you'd think it's brioche, so it's a heavy dough. It's not. It's actually really well proofed, so it's light and it's airy and it has this tenderness to it. And then whipped cream, it's mostly air, right? So let's do another one, and let's do something with some of these fresh raspberries that I have. A little bit of cream inside. And you could use preserves here, or you could use fresh berries, and these berries are so darn good that I think I'm just gonna put like a couple berries inside. I'm gonna do a little bit of confectioners. gently pressing them in. And then I have some freeze-dried raspberries that I just pureed for a second too, so I'm going to use a little bit of that powder and go right on top. We have some rose petal jelly here in the fridge, and I love that stuff. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of rose petal jelly, cream, and then some pistachios on the outside just for a little bit of texture. So let's do that one. It doesn't take a lot. This stuff is sweet and it's very rosy. So depending on your love of rose, I would say, you know, a dab will do you situation. Cream over the top. Grab my knife. So I'm going to dust it like I did with that one, and then I'm going to go through the pistachios. So a little bit of dusting. And then I've just got some ground pistachio, and I'm just going to roll it. I'm going to cut it open, look inside. People always ask, like, how do you eat that? I don't know, did anyone ever ask you how to eat a hot dog? You just kind of like get it done, right? With these, though, sometimes I do like to pull them, sort of pull them apart. I feel like whenever we're making stuff, I'm always like, this is so good, but literally, this is so good. Incredible. The floral from the rose, the toastiness of the nuts, the butter, the salt in the dough, the creaminess. Let me eat this whole thing, except I like that bite. I think that's a really good bite. I'm going to save that for you, Tucker. Maritozzi. Make them. Run around your house. Maritozzi. Yell it at the neighbors. Go outside and offer them a treat. Share some of this goodness with your friends. I mean, as much as we love how these taste, what's better than that is going outside with a tray of Maritozzi and walking down the street and giving them away to people. Baking is an act of love. Breed some goodwill in your community. Make some Maritozzi. Get out there on the street, give them to someone you never met. Spread this goodness around.